Why do so few evangelical voters vote Democratic? For those of my listeners who are neither evangelicals, but who are or tend to vote Democratic, that may seem like something of a great mystery to you. If you know enough about the history of the Christian church and politics in this country, you will know that it was not until the last 40 years that evangelicals have voted predominantly for Republicans. There was a time when the Democrats could count on the evangelical vote, and some would argue that it was evangelicals who actually put Jimmy Carter in the White House in 1976. Well, what's changed? Why would that be, though? Of course, there's been a great change in the South as those Southern folks who tended to be more conservative left the Democratic Party and became Republicans as office holders. But there's also been this radical change: abortion. And abortion has had a deep and profound impact on the voting habits of evangelicals. That may be slipping away after election cycle after election cycle without any significant chipping away or absolute abolition of Roe v. Wade and abortion on demand. But it remains a critical issue to evangelicals. Why? Well, it's a very simple reason why. The reason it matters to evangelicals is because the Bible teaches that all men everywhere bear the image of God, and they are due protection from violence by the government. That is, not violence by the government, they're due protection by the government from violence by others. And while the Republican Party has done precious little to end this, they have at least given lip service to it over the last 40 years. Now, in addition to that, in more recent years, we've also seen other ethical divides where Democrats tend to be more on the side of the ongoing elements of the sexual revolution, which would include things like gay marriage, gender identity, opening up sports and bathrooms and whatnot. All of those things are things where the Bible does speak to the issues. And they matter to Christians. And they should matter to Christians. Now, that's not to say that everywhere, in every context, it's fitting and appropriate for Christians to impose their will on the populace, but it does help us understand why they consistently vote for Republicans. Now, if you take the view that Republicans represent rich people and Democrats represent poor people, you might have a harder time understanding why evangelicals vote Republican, because, again, back in the day, back 40 years ago, that would have been more of the case, that the Republican Party was the party of those who weren't necessarily committed to the unborn and certainly weren't committed to limited government, but were committed to using government to benefit those at the top of the economic ladder. That's not typically a motivator for the evangelical voter. Our things are ethical things, are moral things. Now, I would argue that issues of the redistribution of wealth and social welfare programs are moral issues, and that the Bible's abundantly clear on them. That's why my first book is called Biblical Economics, trying to help people understand that the Bible, as it were, broadly speaking, calls for an extremely limited size and scope of the government, and calls for us to allow people to trade freely. Now, there are some folks who dissatisfied with the level of commitment of the Republican Party to the unborn that actually vote third party. It's not that unusual or that different from what you see with left-leaning people voting for the Green Party or some such. So it shouldn't be that great of a mystery. You may think that Republicans are just evil and have horns and are the devil, and why in the world would these Christians do that? But the truth is, at the end of the day, the bottom line is, right or wrong, the Republican Party is the party that identifies with the unborn children.